Hey, everybody. It's me by myself. Welcome to Authentic Points of View. If you are joining us for the first time, thank you and welcome. I usually have McKenna next to me. She was down here, but she has a headache. And so I don't ever force her to do this. So I told her that she could go. So just keep her in your thoughts and prayers. She's almost 12, so she's going through a lot. And yeah, she also needs to be more hydrated. So that will probably help with her headache, but I'll tell her that in a minute. But all right. So I'm excited about today's guest. She is awesome. And she is from Canada. So I'm excited. Sabrina Trobak lives in Fort St. John. I guess that means British Columbia, Canada. Okay. And is a registered counselor and is the author of Not Good Enough, Understanding Your Core Belief and Anxiety. So I'm really excited to ask about that. All right. Welcome, Sabrina, to the show.
Hi.
Hi. Ooh, did I remove you? What happened? Where did you go? Well, I don't know what happened. This is so live. So she I don't think I took her off of there. I hope not. We'll see. She'll probably jump right back on. We'll see what happened. Okay, let's see. All right. It's like, did I do that? What happened?
All of a sudden, I just got kicked out.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
No worries. She
Oh
told
my
me
god.
try again, so I just clicked the button.
Oh my gosh. Live stuff is fun.
Yeah, no kidding. No worries at all.
Oh my goodness. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry you got kicked out.
No worries. Thanks for having me, Danielle.
You're welcome. So this is not what I was going to talk about, but my show's Authentic Points of View, and I just go with the flow. But my family is from. So my grandmother, both of her parents were French Canadian. I don't know where is that, Quebec. I don't know, but where are you located compared to that?
So French Canadians live all across Canada, but the
Oh,
French Canadian province is definitely Quebec for sure.
okay.
And Quebec is on the East Coast. I'm all the way over on the West Coast. So I'm just in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. I'm actually mile 50 of the Alaska Highway.
Wow, that's
Mhm.
so cool. Oh, I love that. Well, I think I have. I have been to Canada when I was a kid, but I don't remember because my dad was in the military. So we've been like all over. I just don't remember. I don't remember. But anyways, and then like I said, my family is there, but my grandmother was raised in New Hampshire.
Okay.
So they left Canada before I guess she was born, which was in the 20s. But anyways, that's all I know. I don't know a lot. I wish I did
Well, you
about
have
that.
to come up. It's beautiful country up here for sure.
I heard, yes, it is. I'm sure it's very beautiful. Um, and oh, something that's funny, really quick, is that we just went to Maryland, and so my my daughter was putting in the address, and we had driven for hours. I'm in Georgia, okay, so south. So we were driving for hours, and so I said, please put in the address. It was raining really hard. It was foggy, and we stopped. She put in the address and it said 12 and a half hours. And I was like, what? How is that possible? And guess what she put in? Canada. I was like, apparently the address we were going to has an exact address in Canada. I was like, no, we're not going that north. We're just going to Maryland. But it was hilarious. Because
Yeah.
I said, something's wrong. Like, I didn't know she put in, you could put in walking or something. And I was just like, wait a minute, you know. And that was hilarious. And so we had like a big laugh about it because I was like, not the right state, sweetheart. But she tried. So
Yeah. It's a good learning experience for sure.
yeah, it was so funny. I couldn't believe it was the same exact address. I was like, wow, that's cool. Okay. Anyway, that's not even, related to anything, but it was just very funny. All right. So Thank you for being here. And I am so direct sometimes. So I just have a question about how you went from being a teacher to a vice principal to then a counselor. Can you kind of walk through your journey of the process of going to each thing?
Sure. So I was a teacher for, oh, I'm echoing. I was a teacher for over 20 years. Worked in all three school divisions: elementary, junior high, high school, mainly kind of upper elementary, junior high were the most of my years. And I was a learning assistant teacher. So spent a lot of time in smaller group settings working with kids that had learning disabilities, attention deficit, behavior issues, anxiety, different kinds of things like that. So it kind of was a natural progression into the counseling piece. As I continued to work as a teacher, I realized more and more that I wanted to help kids out more at a kind of social emotional level as well as the academic level. And over time, that social emotional level just kind of became more and more significant for me. We had some stuff happen at one of my schools, and they asked me to be a vice principal for a year while our principal went on leave. So I did that for a couple years. And during that time, I was told that I had to be working on my master's. And I said, I have no care to be a principal, not in my area of interest at all. They said, we don't care. As long as you're taking your master's on something, we're happy. So I started my master's in counseling psychology at that point, and then moved into the role as a school counselor. When I was school counselor, I went to a workshop presented by a man named Tony Martins, and he looked at it, the information was based on that perspective of that core belief, feeling not good enough, not important, not valued. At the end of the 3-day workshop, I just said, this is what I need to do. And every single word he said spoke to me. So I contacted him after the workshop and harassed him for about a year, and he finally agreed to treat me as model of therapy. And so I moved back home to Fort St. John and started my own private practice here. And within 6 months, I had a waiting list, and that was back in 2010. And I hate having to turn people away and tell them there's nothing I could do. At times, my waiting list was over 2 years long. Right now it's about 8 to 12 months. And so the book kind of came out of fruition of trying to be able to provide a resource for people who can't access counseling for whatever reason, finances, waiting lists, maybe just not ready to take that leap to a counselor, but wanting to learn a little bit more. You can order a book online, and no one even really knows it's coming. So it's been a gradual progression over the years for sure.
Wow. So that's a lot to unpack, and that's awesome. So, oh my goodness. What? I don't even know. Okay, let me think. So, the not good enough. Do you feel like you ever felt like that as a kid, or you just saw, and that might be too much of a question. You don't have to answer it if it's too much. But I didn't know if you felt you could see yourself in them, and that's what kind of motivated you, or what inspired you to help, kids with anxiety or didn't feel not good enough.
For sure. I think my dad's a very kind of kind, caring, empathetic person, believes in volunteering. So I kind of learned that growing up for sure. And so I think that's where the teaching kind of piece came. But then listening to that workshop, and everything hit for me at a professional level of, yeah, I can help my students with this, but it definitely also hit at a personal level of, oh yeah, that's been going on for me and I didn't even really realize it.
Yeah.
And so that core belief drives everything that we do. It's there, honestly, even before we're born, we're kind of born into a core belief depending on what our parents' core belief is. And so it's this thing that's there, and it grows, year after year after year. And for the vast majority of people, they're not even really aware it's there. So if I'm not aware, how can I do anything about it? It makes it really, really, really challenging. And so becoming aware and understanding how that core belief and challenging it has been, life changing for me and my family. Because when my core belief changes, the way I talk, handle, interact with my boys changes as well. So their core belief is shifting. And then to be able to do it at a professional level where I'm helping, the general public see something that's there that they didn't really realize, and realize that they can challenge and change that. It's a pretty impactful job that I have, for sure.
Wow. Yeah. So, first of all, congratulations on having your practice and having a waiting list. But the sad part is that there are waiting lists, and that sometimes people, not to say anything against you, of course, because you can only take on so much. But that's the sad part, is that sometimes, people really do need help and they don't know where to turn. They maybe can't wait 6 months or 3 months or whatever. And that goes for lots of specialties. Like, I had to wait from October till almost, guys, May 23rd is my appointment with this doctor, Dr. Sapper, and to see if I have POTS. Well, in the meantime, so much stuff could have happened to me in that amount of time, and not knowing a major diagnosis like that. So it's the same thing with mental health. But the fact that you are also aware that how much you can handle, and that you're not taking on everybody, and because you can't help everybody at the same time. So that's also great for you. Kudos to you for that. But it's hard because so many people need help. And you talk about core belief. And so I have a question about that. Does everybody, like, because you said it can change, does everybody have the same one? And how, as a counselor, do you help them find their core belief?
So the core belief, varies from good enough, important, and valued to the other extreme of not good enough, not important, not valued. And they can be in in intensity. So everybody kind of falls within that realm in one area or not. And my goal as a therapist is to help people whose core belief is not good enough, not important, not valued, become more and more good enough, important, and valued. And we do that in a variety of different ways. One of the ways is we kind of look at current situations and what's going on and how they're handling things, and how they can maybe handle things in a bit more of a healthy way, managing their anxiety, understanding where their anger is coming from, understanding why they're making the choices, acting the way they are, that they are. Once we understand why we're doing what we're doing, we can do things differently. Then the other thing we're doing is also going back and looking at all of a person's life experiences and gaining a better understanding of how those experiences influenced and developed a core belief, whether it's good enough, important, and valued, or not good enough, important, not valued. Once we start to see that and understand it, then we can do something about it. Our very first step is awareness. If I'm not aware it's there, I can't do anything about it. So that awareness piece is really, really important. Once I'm aware, then I can start to see things that I never even noticed before, and I can start to challenge them in very different ways.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And that's a great point too, because you can't fix something you don't know is happening or is even an issue in the first place. So if some of your clients may not know that they have an issue, do they just come to you for the anxiety part mostly? Is that how it kind of stems, and then you kind of delve into it? Or
we get people come into counseling for all kinds of different reasons: anxiety, anger, sleep issues, addictions, gambling, pornography, relationship issues, past trauma, you name it, all kinds of different reasons. And what we really say is those aren't really the problem. They're the symptom of something else that's going on. And often it connects back to that core belief. I'm always trying to prove that my core belief is true. And so if I'm drawn to something like alcohol or gambling, where in the moment when I do it, I don't have to think about anything. I just, I get to have a good time. Everything's great and wonderful. But then the next day, I've spent money I didn't really have, broke promises that I've had. Now I don't have money to, pay for groceries for the week or whatever it might be. Ultimately, it reinforces and supports that core belief: not good enough, not important, not valued. So we're helping people understand that these behaviors that they have are also a symptom of that core belief. So we're always kind of bringing things back to that core belief and figuring out, how is that feeding that core belief, and what do we need to do a bit differently to challenge that core belief so we feel more like we are good enough.
Wow, that's wonderful. So when you look at you said like kind of like what are the reasons why that's just symptoms. How do you help people? Maybe you just answered it and I'm going backwards, but with kind of a trauma and like unpacking like, this is a symptom of the trauma and that's why you may not feel like you're good enough. How do you, or what advice would you give someone that kind of has some of that trauma and they might not feel like they're good enough? Like, what's the first step?
One of the big pieces about how impactful trauma isn't even actually about the trauma. It's about how the trauma is handled.
Okay.
And so we don't like to feel our emotions. We just want to make everybody feel better, pretend everything's fine. We don't talk about it. We don't address it. We just push it to the side. That is actually what makes trauma more significant. So, one of the big things that we do is we talk about emotions. We get more comfortable about feeling emotions, talking about emotions, understanding how emotions work. Then we go back and talk about the trauma where now we can put emotions to it. We can start to let go the emotional impact of the experience that happened in the past. The experiences are over with. They're done. We can't go back. We can't change them. We can't do anything different. What we carry with us is the emotional impact of those traumatic events. So the better we get at being able to feel and sort through all emotions, the more we're going to be able to let out the emotions around that trauma. When we can deal with that emotions from the trauma and let that out, then that traumatic event, we're still going to remember it, but it becomes more of this thing on a shelf rather than this thing that we have to carry that's so heavy for us over and over and over again.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What we see is, often if we experience trauma, whether it's parents yelling or abuse or whatever it is, it often creates emotions like powerless, fear, anxiety. We don't like to feel those emotions. So every time we experience our parents yelling or whatever it might be, it creates those emotions and we just push it down, push it down, push it down, push it down, push it down. So now 20, 30, 40, 50 years later, when something happens that makes me feel powerless, fear, anxiety, it's not just about today. It's about all those times throughout my life that I've suppressed that emotion. So the emotion just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and harder to cope with. So we need to be able to go back and sort through and be okay, comfortable to feel those emotions and let it out. It's not fun feeling them, but we all know after a good cry, we feel better the next day. So we need to let those emotions out. The more we do that, that's how we really, a big part of resolving the trauma. We need to go back and gain a better understanding of it as well. But that emotion piece is a really, really, really important part.
Yeah. So for kids, this show, we say it could be any kind of kids, but we usually just say it's like 10 and up. Maybe they're getting yelled at, or maybe they just feel like they just can't do good enough, right? And so sometimes that's maybe the perception is that, like, even I just had this situation with my daughter. And if we didn't have communication, it would have been bad and she would have felt really, really bad. But I had to say sorry. But what would you say? So, like, I love journaling. Do you think that would be a good way for like a child to just get out their emotions at the time? Or what would be a good way for children to express their emotions without having to say it to the person if they can't?
Right. You actually don't have to get your emotions out. You don't have to do it to anyone.
Yeah.
You can just do it on your own. So journaling can be a useful tool, but not everybody's big into journaling. And so, one of the things that we look at is get an emotions list. You can get them on the internet. There's one on my website in my blog section. But get an emotions list that just lists all kinds of different emotions. And then when you're feeling something, Go through and read over the list and just recognize which ones seem to be kind of hitting home for you. Even just reading those emotions and thinking, yep, that's what I'm feeling, you're slowly allowing yourself to feel a little bit of emotion at a time. If you're 10, 12, 13, 14 years old and you've never really felt emotion, feeling it is scary. It's overwhelming. So we want to go very slow, just little tiny steps at a time. So being able to look at a list of emotions and help me gain a better understanding of what I'm feeling is really, really, really important. You don't need to share that with anyone else. Really, it's no one else's business. If you have someone that you can confide in and that can help you and support you, great, go for it. But you don't need anyone else to do that. That's one of the really important things to remember about that core belief. The only one who can challenge and change your core belief is you. And so the better you get at being able to feel those emotions and sort through those emotions is really, really effective. As a family, one of the things that we recommend is just start talking more about emotions. Watching a family movie night, pause the movie and go, "Ooh, what do you think that guy's feeling? How would you feel in that situation?" And so even when everything's just neutral, I'm feeling fine, maybe even happy, excited, calm, those are the best times to talk about emotions because I'm not already trying to hold in a bunch of emotions to begin with. So just talking about emotions, if you're, reading your child a bedtime story or you're the child being read to, stop and talk to your parent about what do you think that character's feeling right now? How would I feel in that situation? Allowing yourself to talk about those emotions, normalize it. If I can have a normal general conversation about emotions 10, 15, 30 times, then when I'm feeling emotions, it's going to be more comfortable for me to talk about what I'm really feeling when the emotion is really there. So we need to start small when things are calm and settled and just start talking more about emotions.
I love that advice. That's great advice. Um, I never, well, I guess I do that with my daughter, but my boys are way older. So I have three boys, two of them. I had one at 18, one at 20, and then I got a bonus son when he was 4 years old. And then I had my daughter, and the oldest one is 12 years older than her. So me, I am a totally different person now than I was then.
Yep.
So I feel like with my daughter, I'm more level-headed. I'm a life coach, so I've learned a lot through that, um, and just all kinds of stuff in life. I can relate and listen to her better than I could with the boys. And so the situation that just happened today, I'm honest, and if she was here, I might not say it because she would probably be embarrassed. But so she said to me, "You say I don't help you, but I just helped you the other day and I helped clean and I helped do this." And she didn't feel validated by me. And that made me sad. But I'm so glad that she felt comfortable enough to say that to me. And so I had to think about it and I told her, "Thank you so much for helping me." And, maybe my expectations are too high. Like maybe I had to reflect on myself. Like she is trying, she is helping me. I'm a single mom. So it's like, to me, it gets overwhelming as well because I'm trying to do all the things. And her helping to her is like, she's like, I am doing a lot. Like to her, she's doing a lot. To me, I still see stuff and I'm like, ah. And so, it's just it's
Yep.
great to be able to communicate and that I want her to know that she's loved and appreciated. I'm very appreciative that she is helping and she is doing her best. And I'm very grateful that she said that to me because it made me think, oh boy, what am I doing? Like I didn't want to upset her. She started crying and I'm like, why is she crying? But if we didn't have that communication, I would be like, what, why are you crying in the middle of the conversation? So, but she told me. Um, so what advice do you give? And I'll tell you about my brother a little bit, but what advice do you give to maybe people that feel like teenagers that feel like they aren't able to even open up to you? And maybe it doesn't have to be a male, but My question is like that because my brother passed away at 26, and he felt like I'm assuming that nobody really cared or that he couldn't talk about his feelings. So as a counselor, how do you get that trust factor with kids and get them to open up?
Again, it comes back to being more comfortable feeling our emotions. One of the biggest issue I get from couples is, we can't communicate. But, when I talk to them, I have no problem understanding what they're saying. I know exactly what they're talking about. It's
Yeah.
not communication that's the issue. It's I don't like to feel my emotions, which means now I can't have any conversation that creates emotion. So
Mm.
for a child to say to a parent, "You hurt my feelings," that creates a ton of emotion. And so in order to have better communication, we have to get better at feeling our emotions. If I'm more comfortable to feel vulnerable, fear, sad, lonely, rejection, abandoned, I'm going to feel more comfortable having conversations that can create those kind of emotions. So we need to really, again, it comes back to that emotion piece, talking about emotions when things are calm and neutral and everything's going well, figuring things out, understanding things at that emotional level. Now I'm going to be more open to be able to talk about whatever it is I need to talk about. But if one of the things that I think is really, really important is kids are always watching, and they see their parents and their parents getting angry because the shoes aren't put away in the front entrance. Well, then I'm not gonna talk to my parents about something that might make them feel anxious or if shoes are stressing them out, I'm not gonna talk to 'em about other things as well. So as parents, one of the key things we need to do is get really, good at being able to feel our emotions and really think about what's going on for us. How am I presenting for my child? The better we get at looking at that and seeing how we're actually presenting, the more we're going to be able to manage things. And being a healthy parent doesn't mean you never screw up. Being a healthy parent means when I screw up, I'm okay to own it, which is also a vital lesson to teach our children as well. So if I can, say, "Oh, you never help," and then my child gets upset and says, "You say that, but it's not really true," and I can go, "You know what? You're right. You did help out a lot this weekend. That was about me feeling overwhelmed, not really about you at all." That's really good for that child to be able to hear that. Makes that child feel validated, makes that child feel good enough. You're recognizing it and owning it. We need to own our own take responsibility for our own mistakes. When we do that, we're teaching our children how to do it as well. You can't say, "Well, you, well, you, well, you, well, you," and then turn around and say, "You never take any responsibility." Well, yeah, you never taught me how because you're always blaming me,
Right.
right?
Yeah. That's hard.
Mhm.
So we like haven't discussed this, but the like generational trauma. So it's very hard for me to hear like years ago when my boys were little, my mom would say, "All you do is yell." Well, all she did was yell. And so that was like a in the face. I'm like, "What? I'm being like I don't want to be like that." And I love my mom and she helps me with my daughter, but that's not the kind of parent I wanted to be, but I automatically would go to
Yep.
and my second son has they don't call it this anymore, but he was diagnosed with Asperger's, but now it's the autism spectrum. He has ADHD, bipolar, ODD, all this stuff. And I was a single mom of two kids and a young single mom. And so I would get overwhelmed very easily. And my child never slept. So it's like, it was like, no, oh, I didn't have, other than when I was at work, which is also not a break, but like I was just always on, right? And
Yep.
so until I got help, he had a case manager finally. He had a counselor, he had a psychologist, and he went to occupational therapy and all that stuff. But until we got help managing and other people to come in and kind of be that other parent for me, it was a lot. And they taught me and helped me a lot. And I'm so grateful for them. And they were the support system for all of us. And they would tell me, "You need to give him breaks." Like I just expected him to just do his work. Well, he didn't understand it. He couldn't read very well at that time. He was struggling. And so his attention span was not like my older sons, you know? So I had to learn and grow with my child. And that's something that's important though as parents is that, you know, and I'm guilty of it too with them, is that I was so overprotective and I just wanted them to like nothing bad to go wrong. Well, then it does because they don't understand. Like you said, they don't know about the emotions and how to express this because I was like trying to pad and protect everything.
Right.
What would you say to a parent that was like how I was? And we have good intentions, but it's just not helping. What would you say?
Again, we got to kind of look at where that comes from. So a lot of that is really about the parent's need, right? I need to prove to myself that I'm a good enough parent. So if my child never has any problems, never has any struggles, then I must be doing a great job. But that's not how it works. Being a good parent means your child's becoming independent, becoming confident, becoming a problem solver, a critical thinker. You doing everything for your child does not create that.
Right.
You want to build confidence. Well, how do you build confidence? The only way is to try something and succeed, or try something, fail, and get back up and try it again. So when we have parents that are, kind of hovering and overprotective and doing everything for their child, trying to pad them so they never have to feel any emotions, we're not teaching our kids how to feel emotions. We're not teaching our kids how to do anything. We're actually teaching them, I don't think you can handle this, so I'll do it for you. Not good enough. And so that's about our needs, not about what's in the best interest of our child. So it's, again, really important to step back and look at that. As parents, we want to, it's the biggest job there is. We want to be successful. We want to feel good as a parent. And so we think, well, if I do all these things up here, then my child will succeed. Everything will be great, wonderful. I can say I'm a great parent. Well, it has to go way deeper than that. We have to create it at that foundation level. That means stepping back and figuring out, what does my child need? Not what do I need to prove to myself that I'm a good enough parent. And I see it all the time. In the school system, I saw it all the time. Well, my kid needs to get on honors. My kid needs to pass. My kid needs, why? Because then the parent can prove they're a good enough parent. Because the parent's expectations are, I'll be a good enough parent if my child passes, gets a certain grade, gets on honors, whatever it is. When you really stop and talk about it, like, who cares? Where's the child at? Let's teach the child how to become more self-reliant, self-confident. Okay, this is your grade right now. What is your goal for next semester? What do you want to do? Do you want to keep it the same? Do you want to try get a bit higher? What do you want your goal to be? Rather than the schools, the teachers, the parents, the coaches, the grandparents, the cousins, the aunties, the uncles, telling them what they should do. Let's teach the child how to think for themselves and help them figure out how to set up a goal that works for them. Write it down on a piece of paper. Next report card comes up. Okay, this was your goal. How did you do? Did you meet that goal? Did you not meet that goal? If you met it, great. What did you do to meet that goal? If you didn't, what do you think you did? What do you want to do differently? What's your new goal? All of that is saying you're important. You have value. You are good enough. You're figuring out how to do this for yourself. You are thinking for yourself. That is way more empowering than a parent telling a child what they need to do. Keeping a child in a bubble is not helping them. It is hindering them significantly. It feeds that core belief, not good enough, not important, not valued, massively. My child feels emotion. I don't want to feel my emotion, so I need to make my child feel better. We see it all the time. My child, breaks their toy. They start crying. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. We'll get you another one. Oh, you have another one that's just like that. That's about my needs as a parent. I don't want to feel my emotions because my kid's feeling their emotions, rather than going, yeah, you should feel sad. That makes sense that you've got emotion right now. That was your favorite toy. Just let them feel it. And then we move on to the next thing. So we need to be aware of, what am I doing? Is it in my best interest? Is it my needs? Or is it really about my child's needs? Just stopping and thinking through that filter will make a huge difference in your parenting for sure.
Yeah, well, that's So you just thank you, Yolanda, for watching. Yes, she said she totally agrees. So I consciously, yeah, I never did those things out of about me. It was because I didn't get what I needed, and my mom just let us run free and all this stuff. So I did the opposite. So I didn't have the intention of like it makes me look like a good parent because my son was getting in trouble all the time.
Okay,
But
but why did you do the opposite?
because I feel because of what it stems my brother. So everything I did was because I didn't want what happened with my brother to happen to my kids. Now, my brother hadn't passed away. My brother took his own life. And so I actually heard it too. I was on the phone and my mom was there. But anyway, so my mom enabled my brother and she was very hard on me. Now I'm very grateful that she was harder on me. I'm very grateful for that. But at the time I wasn't. I was jealous and I was upset about everything. Why does he get away with this? Blah blah blah. But with my boys, it wasn't about like again how I looked. I didn't think maybe it was, but to me it wasn't. But it was more of like I was just didn't want anything bad to happen to them. I wanted, and it wasn't in my mind. And again, maybe from professional, maybe that was what it was, but not to me. I didn't ever do it in like, oh, if this happens, it will make me look bad. It was like, I don't want them to be hurt. Well, of course they're going to get hurt. I mean, it wasn't a valid way of thinking, but it was just like, oh, I don't want them to think that I don't care. My kids, not me, don't think that they don't care, and I just let them run loose all day. And that's because that's kind of like what happened with us is that we would just be, and that's how it was back in the day. It was different, but like there was no like check in at this time, this and that. We could have been missing for hours, and you know. So I think it was from that. Like I didn't want to be like that.
And I think that's a valid point. I'm glad you brought it out because I'm not talking about like I need to look like a good parent. It is those things, right? If my child doesn't get hurt, then I have done a good job. As parents, we want to do a good job. We want to do what's
Yeah,
best,
true.
right? And so we have this perspective of, if my child doesn't get hurt, then I've done a good job. But again, we can't control everything that happens out there.
Right.
Kids are going to get hurt. What we want to do is teach them so they have the skills. So when something goes wrong, they know how to handle it. Right. But we often get in that protective mode where we just want them to be safe. That's the way we feel as parents. We've been doing that for generations. And often we see that, well, my mom did this or my dad did this, it didn't really work. So I'm doing this over here. Problem is, one end of the spectrum to the other end of the
Right.
spectrum still isn't it still reinforces and feeds not good enough, not important,
Right.
not valued. So it's not until I really work on myself and challenge my own core belief, once I start to believe in myself, then I can start to think through and make those decisions about what do I need to do, what's best here. But if I believe I'm not good enough, I'm not going to trust in myself that I can make these decisions, especially around parenting, because how much education and training do we get in parenting? Right? We go to work, we get supervision, we get mentorship, we have policies, we have procedures, we have education, we have professional development. We have all these things in place to help us be successful in that work. We didn't get any of that for parenting. We're just kind of dropped in, and it's like, okay, well, do what your parents did or don't do what your parents did. So we're not going to feel as confident in those skills because we don't have the knowledge and the training, which means I'm not going to trust in myself that I know how to make these decisions. So I just go all or none. Then I don't have to really think through it. The more I believe in myself, the more I can go, okay, in this situation, what do I want to do? What's the best way? What's really going on for my child? How do I handle this in a very different way? But if I feel not good enough, I'm going to be more drawn to those quick responses that are kind of all or none for sure.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thank you. And that's why I'm super blessed that I learned from those those situations and that I listened to my kids. My kids are now grown men. And my son with a lot of diagnosis told me that he felt like the other one got more attention. But in reality, he was getting a lot of attention because I was going to all of his appointments and all these things, and he had an IEP. I don't know if you guys have IEPs or what you call them. Okay. But I was different, weird. I was protected, but I also learned a lot. And then when he became a teenager, I held him accountable. And I would say, and if something happened, for instance, I love him. He's doing great now. He's fantastic. He's a father. He's doing fantastic. He's changed so much, and I'm so proud of him. But anyway, when he was a teenager, he got in trouble in school because he got in a fight, and and he lied about it, and it was on camera. So we would have to do a meeting, and they would say, "Is it his diagnosis or him?" I was like, "No, it was him. It was his diagnosis." Like, I don't understand. But when children in the United States have an IEP and they get suspended or expelled or whatever, you have to have an IEP meeting and to see if this isn't that. But I taught him, and that's about me, but I'm not trying to make it about me, but I taught him better than that. Like, he would hold open doors for people. Like, he was, he knew those values. And even though he had those diagnoses, yes, he's very impulsive and all that stuff. You lied about it. You purposely lied about it, right? So I would hold him accountable. And now that he's a grown man, he thanked me for that.
Right. And be able to take a lot more responsibility and ownership because he learned it, right?
Yeah. And so there's a lot of things that I feel like I could have done better. Honestly, I know I look back and I'm like, oh, I can't change the past. But the good thing is that, like, unfortunately for him, because it's already happened. But for my daughter, now it's taught me, okay, like you said, like, I can't just be impulsive and react and go, bye. Like, I can't do that with her. And she's also different. She's a girl. So she's a more emotional like I am. She's not like my boys that aren't as emotional. So the good thing also is that, like you said, I allow her to express those emotions, and it's important, and we both do that together. And so all of your advice is amazing. So have any of these tips been in your book, or is there anything like you can tell us about important things that are in the book?
Sure. So the book, it really spends a lot of time looking at that core belief. It helps people get a better understanding of different examples of what that core belief looks like and how it can develop. It is a handbook. So you read a little bit of information and then you apply that information to your own personal experiences in the activities. So you want to go through it slowly. It's not something you want to read in a weekend. You want to take some time and go through it. So it gives you a better understanding of that core belief, how it's developed over the years, how you as a parent are creating that core belief in yourself and in your children. So you can look at doing things differently that way. It looks at anxiety, how anxiety is actually lack of confidence, not believing in yourself you can handle something. So we have someone who has test anxiety. We say, oh, it's the tests that create the anxiety. It's not the test. It's my belief in myself to handle the test. If I believe I can handle writing the test, I'm not going to have anxiety. If I believe I can't handle it, I'm going to have anxiety. So anxiety is actually lack of confidence. The opposite of each other is opposite of anxiety is confidence. And so it looks at and helps you gain a better understanding of that and what you can do to challenge yourself so that you feel more confident in handling things. Gives you a ton of strategies that you can use for yourself. All those strategies can be applied and used with your kids as well. Talks about anger, how anger is one of the number one coping strategies we use to suppress and push down emotions. If I'm feeling vulnerable, fear, anxiety, I don't like to feel those emotions, switch it to anger. Now all I have to feel is anger. So anger is a coping strategy for suppressing other emotions. So we talk a lot about anger, the cycle of anger, help people gain a better understanding of the anger that they have, the anger of the cycle that they're living in. And then we look at emotions in general and how do we feel our emotions physiologically in our body and sort through it at that level. So the book is broken down into very specific areas, very small pieces. One of the things being a teacher for 20 years is I know that people with anxiety struggle with reading. So how do you write a book about anxiety for people who don't like to read? Gets a bit challenging. So the book is written at about a grade 6, 7 reading level. So it doesn't have a bunch of big scientific words or big terminology. It's very easy, very basic to read. It's written in a bigger font, so it's easier to read. There's not as many words on a page. And then it's broken up into very small chunks. So there's very few 2 pages of full text in the book. There's lots of activities, diagrams, illustrations. It's broken into very small subtitles so that you can just read a half a page, a third of a page at a time and stop if you want to. So it really is to help you gain a better understanding and a self-reflection of what's going on. It is, written for the reader for sure. And I would say anyone kind of 12 and older would be able to read it and get through it quite easily. As a parent, you could definitely read it and work through some of the information with your children as well. If this one goes and I sell a fair amount of copies, I am looking at the possibility of a second book that is more focused on families for sure.
That's so awesome. Thank you for saying, like, you explain stuff so well. I just want to tell you that. And I've never been diagnosed, but my son, when he was diagnosed with ADHD and autism, they would say, which parent has it? And I'd go, I don't know. I don't have that. And it's got to be me. So it's very hard. I wrote a book, ironically, but I'm not a good reader because my focusing, it's just too much. But I want to say thank you for the test anxiety part, which I feel like you were speaking to me, because in nursing school, I literally stayed after class. The teacher was amazing, the professor. She stayed after class with me for 2 hours because I was freaking out. I was crying. And she said to me, "You're going to fail." And I went, "What?" And she's like, "Can you see the test?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, how do you expect to pass the test if you?" And she sat there with me. And so she asked me the questions out loud, which that's not how it went, but she asked me a question. I got it right. And she said, "You know the information." But in that context, I didn't never finished it that night. She said, "Just come back to," she was so nice because she could have failed me. She said, "Come back tomorrow and take it." And so I was very blessed that, and also my brother had just passed away. So I feel like they gave me some grace. But my test anxiety was so bad, and I don't talk about this a lot because my friends watch, but I'll talk about it because it's my honest truth. I had a panic attack during my NCLEX exam, and I was pregnant with my daughter. I had a panic attack. I had all the questions, but at the end, I was running out of time. You only have 5.5 hours. Most people don't need even close to that. But if you have test anxiety and you doubt your answers, yeah. So I was freaking out so bad that I was crying, and that at the end, I just started answering whatever to not run out of time. And I failed the first time I took the boards. And that's a big deal. I mean, I've been a nurse for 11 years now. And I feel like I love my patients. They love me, and I do a great job. But I didn't talk about that because I was ashamed. But other people might have gone through that, and they need to know that it's okay and you can take it again. The next time I took it, I passed with the least amount of questions. I did breathing techniques. I did everything that I could to get it under control. So thank you for saying that, because you're right. It was a lack of confidence. But the funny thing is that the knowledge was in me. I just didn't believe in myself.
Right. And that's anxiety. It's not about your actual skill or capability. It's your belief in yourself. That's where it comes back to that core belief. If I feel not good enough, how can I believe in myself?
Wow.
So now everything that comes into play, I'm going to have more anxiety because I'm not going to believe in myself that I can handle doing it as much. One of the things in the school system, we're looking at kids with anxiety, ADHD, learning disabilities, is they're usually very bright. They know all the information. They just can't figure out how to get it out onto the page. So that's where the IEPs can be very helpful in being able to use a scribe, get more writing time, doing writing in quiet settings, those things can bring that anxiety down. Now I can really see more what my actual skill or abilities are. So anxiety isn't about your actual ability. Often we'll have anxiety about something, then it actually happens and we go, well, that wasn't that big of a deal. Why was I freaking out about it? Because it's
Yeah.
not about my actual skill or ability, it's my belief in myself. So anxiety is almost always higher before the event. Because once my skills and my ability kick in and I know what I'm actually doing, the anxiety goes away. It's not about the actual ability, it's about my belief in myself. That core belief is not good enough. There's a much higher chance I'm going to have more anxiety for sure.
Wow. I love it. And it's so accurate. And when you don't think of things a certain way, or you don't never heard it a certain way, and then you
Yeah.
do, and you're like, what? Like, like that makes so much sense. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. I wish McKenna was here, because at her age, I'm gonna play this part for her, because at her age, that's important, because she is so smart, and she's in everything. She's like a overachiever, and I do not push that on her. She's just like that naturally. But she's in an ambassador, a leader, Bible study, dance, band, winter guard, and she's just like in more and more things. And I allow her to try. I'm like, okay, you want to do that? Okay, let's see how it goes. And I always tell her, your grades have to keep up. You have to keep up your grades, but if you can handle all the things, go ahead. But it does overwhelm her, and that's another thing I tell her, is that if you're getting anxious about stuff, maybe too much is on your plate, maybe you're doing too much. But what I'm going to ask you, selfishly, what advice would you give me to tell her, like, to figure out, like, which things she really likes, like if she's doing too much? What do I say as a parent to not discourage her, but try to encourage her to figure out, to balance?
And I think that's the key word, is balance, right? If she's talking about how she's overwhelmed, how she's stressed, how she's really tired all the time, then I would say it doesn't sound like you got balance.
Okay.
What do we need to do to create balance? What can that look like? Let's look at all the things that you do throughout a week, and then let's really look at, is this balance, is it realistic or not? And maybe it is, but maybe it's not. And so then it's like, okay, so what do we need to do differently? Maybe she loves every single activity and doesn't want to change that. Okay, so how do we create more downtime for you in those other times? Or maybe it is, well, I really like these three things, but this thing is, yeah, it's just kind of here or there. Okay, well, then maybe we need to drop that or not do it, or at least not re-register for it for next semester or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. But the other thing, again, is going back to that core belief. Why are you doing everything? Are you doing everything because you're curious and you're passionate and it's exciting for you? Or are you doing it because you want to try to prove you're good enough, prove you're good enough, prove you're good enough, prove you're good enough? If you're doing it that way, it's not a healthy way to do it. So let's take a step back and really think about that and gain a better understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, and really focus on how do we do things that you feel good about? You feel pride, you feel connected, you're happy in doing what you're doing. It's exciting for you. That's where that balance really kind of comes into play. But the other piece is, being 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, you almost should feel not good enough, because you are now being exposed to so many things that you've never done before,
Yeah.
and you're not going to feel as confident in yourself. Really up until you're 7, 8, 9, you don't have to do anything on your own, right? Mom and dad are there, they're cooking for you, they're, helping you get ready for school, they're checking your agenda, they're doing all these things where you're very much kind of mothered, right? But once you get to that 10, 11, 12, now's that time where you're wanting to push away from your parents more and be more independent, which means now you're trying to navigate all these things that you've never had to navigate before. But
Right.
if I haven't done it, I'm not going to feel as confident in doing it. So that's part of that journey too, is, ooh, this feels uncomfortable. This feels awkward. What strategies do I use to help me figure out how to manage this? Even social, the friendships in elementary school, everybody's invited to everybody's birthday party.
Yeah.
Well, by the time you're, 12, 13, 14 years old, that's not happening anymore. And you've got friends going in different directions. And so it can be heartbreaking when you're being rejected by a friend who's now going in a different pathway, or you're having to kind of end a friendship because it's not going the way you want to go anymore. The more you have that connection, those conversations with your parent, the more you're going to be able to talk through and sort through those things and figure it out. So it's really important that parents are aware of those things. You know, we often put our expectations of our 30, 40, 50 years of life on our 10 or 11, 12, 13-year-old child. Well, they do not have the understanding. They do not have the knowledge base, right? Their experiences is what's making their decisions, not our experiences. So we need to have to be able to step back and ask, what do you think? How do you want to handle this? What do you want to do? That's going to give us a much better idea of where their thinking is at and how we can better understand them. But we often try to kind of just swoop in and try to make them feel better rather than helping them build confidence by talking to them, asking, what do you need from me? How can I support you right now? Right? How do you want to handle this? What do you think you should do? All those things create confidence, create independence. Those are vital. Doing it for them, not helpful.
Yeah, I love that. I actually just asked her yesterday, what can I do to help? Because you know, and I'm trying my best, again, not perfect, but trying my best to encourage her to learn and problem solve and all this stuff. And you know, something I didn't do with the boys, and I'm glad, is that some of their parents would do their projects for them. I'm like, how are they going to learn the thing? I just don't understand that. Like, you know, like that's not how it works. Like, you have to do it yourself to learn.
Right.
But that's how it is with a lot of stuff. But we're wrapping up, and this has been so great, by the way. Thank you so much. I genuinely like am so excited, and you've got so much like knowledge and experience, and that's just been great. So if you could go back and tell your 13-year-old self something, what would you say to her?
Focus on the things that you do well. You know, if every night before I went to bed when I was 13, I thought about one thing that I did well before I went to sleep, it would have made a difference for sure.
Wow.
One of the things we suggest parents do is when you go to bed at night, go into the room and say to your child, I love you because, and tell them one thing that they've done that day that you really appreciate and value. We've gone from the generations where we never said, I love you. Now we flip to the other side of the pendulum where we say it 100 times a day. Or I say, I love spaghetti. I love you. Love has lost its value. The word is more washed over. To say, I love you because you were really excited when you came home from your spelling test today. That has a massive impact. So we don't want to make it skill. I don't want to say, I love you because you got an A, because it's not about task. It's about the person. I love you because you studied really hard. I love you because of how proud you were when you got your A. I love you because you've worked really hard on improving your grades, and I can see the work effort that you're putting into it. So we want it to focus on them. I started doing that with my boys when they were very, very young, probably 7, 8 years old. They're now in their 20s. Right up until when they were in high school, I'd be going to bed before them, and they would come into my room, Mom, tell me why you love me. And I have to tell them why I love them before I went to bed. Even now, as adults, once a week, I text them why I love them. Just a little note every Monday. It changes that dynamic. That helps them build that I am good enough. I am good enough. Little things. Like my mom loves me because I emptied the dishwasher quickly this morning when she was in a rush. That's small, that's minor, but it makes a difference, right? And so those little things can go a long way. If I would have been able to recognize something I did well every day since I was 13 years old, be in a very different place right now, that's for sure.
Yeah, me too. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. I'm gonna start doing that, even with my grown men, my 3 grown men.
Absolutely. You bet.
The youngest is about to be 19 in 2 days. It's crazy. And he's been in my life since he was 4 years old. He's amazing. They all are amazing, but the oldest is 24, and I was like, oh, what happened? It goes so fast. But
I know.
I love that advice, and I'm gonna definitely do it with McKenna as well. But just texting them and letting them know that's important, because my second son, he says I love you all the time, like me, And I had an ex, we were together, but he would be like, okay, that's a lot of I love yous, but I meant it. It wasn't fake, but he's like, okay. And a lot of people, it's a lot. And that's how McKenna is. McKenna is also like that. She says, I love you a lot, but saying I love you because that's so beautiful and so awesome. So I put your website like down at the bottom. I wasn't going to put all of the ones that you gave me, but I'll put them in the show notes.
Okay.
But if you want to say for the listeners that are just listening and not watching, where can we find you?
Sure. So my website is trobakholistic.org. It is the best place. It's got all my social media links. It's got a page for if you want to buy my book. It's got a blog section that are, again, 2 to 4 minute reads just about different information around mental health. It also has a page on there that has all the podcast interviews that I've done as well. I am on YouTube and Facebook on Trobak Holistic Counseling. I'm on Instagram at NGE, so not good enough, NGE_Trobak, and on TikTok at NGE_core_belief.
Oh, awesome. So is your book on Amazon as well, or just go on your website? Okay.
My book is available on Amazon. It's currently sold out in Canada. And so they were taking some from the US, so it was a bit longer in the US. So you can order from Amazon, or you can order directly from me. And I have to charge a little bit more, but it's like $45 Canadian, which is still like under $30 American, which is about what they're charging on Amazon anyways. So you can order directly from me or through Amazon. You'll get it faster through Amazon, that's for sure.
Okay. Awesome. Because, yeah, so we have listeners everywhere, actually in lots of different countries. So is there anywhere that they won't ship? Probably. I'm not sure.
Pretty much all Amazons. It's available on all Amazons. So
okay.
Amazon UK, Amazon, Australia. It's on all Amazons. So if you have access to Amazon, it's going to be on there. Not good enough. Understanding your core belief and anxiety. When I first brought out my book, I was the only not good enough book. Now there's more out there that are called that. So definitely not good enough. If you look my last name, Trobak, it should pop up for you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sabrina, for coming on and talking to us and giving us all this. And in a short amount of time, you really have covered so many important conversations and topics. I really appreciate it. I wish McKenna was here, but I'm glad. I hope she feels better.
Yeah, for sure.
But thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful day. And everybody, we are on at 7 p.m. Eastern next week, not 3, because I have to work at the hospital. So, all right. Thank you, Sabrina.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.